Delirium Chapter 7 by Lauren Oliver, page 87. Of all the systems of the body, neurological, cognitive, special, sensory, the cardiological system is the most sensitive and easily disturbed. The role of society must be to shelter these systems from infection and decay, or else the future of the human race is at stake. Like a summer fruit that is protected from insect invasion, bruising, and rot by the whole mechanism of modern farming, so we must protect the heart. The Role and Purpose of Society, the book of page 353. I was named after Mary Magdalene, who was nearly killed from love. Remember how we talked about this? So infected with deliria and in violation of the pacts of society, she fell in love with men who would not have her or could not keep her. Book of Lamentations, Mary 13:1. We learned all about it in biblical science. First there was John, then Matthew, then Jeremiah, then Peter, and Judas, and many other nameless men in between. Her last love, they say, was the greatest, a man named Joseph, a bachelor all his life, who found her on the street, bruised and broken and half crazy from deliria. There's some debate about what kind of man Joseph was, whether he was righteous or not, whether he even succumbed to the disease. But in any case, he took good care of her. He nursed her to health and tried to bring her peace. By this time, however, it was too late. She was tormented by her past, haunted by the loves lost and damaged and ruined, by the evils she had inflicted on others and that others had inflicted on her. She could hardly eat, she wept all day, she clung to Joseph and begged him never to leave her, but couldn't find comfort in his goodness. And then one morning, she woke, and Joseph was gone, without a word or an explanation. This final abandonment broke her at last, and she fell to the ground, begging God to put her out of her misery. He heard her prayers, and in his infinite compassion, he instead removed from her the curse of deliria, with which all humans had been burdened as punishment for the original sin of Adam and Eve. In a sense, Mary Magdalene was the very first cured. And so, after years of tribulation and pain, she walked in righteousness and peace until the end of her days. Book of Lamentations, Mary 13:1. I always thought it was strange that my mother named me Magdalena. She didn't even believe in the cure. That was her whole problem. And the Book of Lamentations is all about the dangers of deliria. I've done a lot of thinking about it. And in the end, I guess I figured out that despite everything, my mother knew that she was wrong, that the cure and the procedure were for the best. I think even then she knew what she was going to do. She knew what would happen. I guess my name was her final gift to me in a way. It was a message. I think she was trying to say, forgive me. I think she was trying to say, someday, even this pain will be taken away. You see, no matter what everyone says, and despite everything, I know she wasn't all bad. The next 2 weeks are the busiest of my life. Summer explodes into Portland. In early June, the heat was there, but not the color. The greens were still pale and tentative. The mornings had a biting coolness. But by the last week of school, everything is technicolor and splash. Outrageous blue skies and purple thunderstorms and ink black night skies and red flowers as bright as the spots of blood. Every day after school there's an assembly or ceremony or graduation party to go to. Hannah gets invited to all of them. I get invited to most, which really surprises me. Harlow Davis, who lives with Hannah in the West End and whose father does something for the government, invites me to come over for a casual goodbye thing. I didn't even think she knew my name. Whenever she's talking to Hannah, her eyes have always skated past me, like I'm not worth focusing on. I go on anyway. I've always been curious about her house, and it turns out to be as spectacular as I imagined. Her family has a car, too, and electric appliances everywhere that obviously get used every day. Washers and dryers and huge chandeliers filled with dozens and dozens of light bulbs. Harlow has invited most of the graduating class. There are 67 of us total. And probably 50 at the party, which makes me feel less special, but it's still fun. We sit in the backyard while the housekeeper runs in and out of the house with plates and plates of food, coleslaw and potato salad and other barbecue stuff. And her father turns out spare ribs and hamburgers on the enormous smoking grill. I eat until I feel like I'm about to burst and have to roll backwards onto the blanket I'm sharing with Hannah. We stay there until almost after curfew, when the stars are peeking through a curtain of dark blue and the mosquitoes rise up all at once, and we all go shrieking and laughing back into the house, slapping them away. Afterward, I think it's one of the nicest days I've ever had in a long time. Even girls I don't really like Shelley Pearson, who has hated me since 6th grade, when I won the science fair and she took 2nd place, start being nice. I guess it's because we all know the end is close. Most of us won't see one another after graduation, and even if we do, it will be different. We'll all be different. We'll be adults, cured, tagged and labeled and paired and identified and placed neatly on our life path, perfectly round marbles set to roll down even, well-defined slopes. Teresa Grass turns 18 before school ends and gets cured. So does Morgan Dow. They're absent for a few days and come back to school just before graduation. The change is amazing. They seem peaceful now, mature and somehow remote, like they're encased in a thin layer of ice. Only 2 weeks ago, Teresa's nickname was Teresa Gross, and everyone made fun of her for slouching and chewing on the ends of her hair and generally being a mess. But now she walks straight and tall with her eyes fixed straight in front of her, her lips barely curled in a smile, and everyone shifts a little in the hall so she can pass easily. Same thing goes for Morgan. It's like all their anxiety and self-consciousness has been removed along with the disease. Even Morgan's legs have stopped trembling. Whenever she used to have to speak in class, the trembling would get so bad she would rock the desk. But after the procedure, just like that, whoosh, the shaking stops. Of course, they're not the first girls in our class to get cured. Eleanor Reyna and Annie Hahn were both cured way back in the fall, and a half dozen other girls have had the procedure this past semester. But in them, the difference is somehow more pronounced. I keep going with my countdown. 81 days, then 80, then 79. Willow Marks never comes back to school. Rumors filter back to us that she had her procedure and it turned out fine. That she had her procedure and now her brain is going haywire. And they're talking about committing her to the Crips, Portland's combo prison and mental health ward. That she ran away to the wilds. One thing is for sure, the whole Marks family is under constant surveillance now. The regulators are blaming Mr. and Mrs. Marks and the whole extended family for not instilling in her a proper education, and only a few days after she was supposedly found in Deering Oaks Park, I overheard my aunt and uncle whispering that both of Willow's parents have been fired from their jobs. A week later, we hear that they've had to move in with a distant relative. Apparently, people kept throwing rocks at their windows, and a whole side of their house was written over with a single word: sympathizers. It makes no sense, because Mr. and Mrs. Marks were on record insisting that their daughter have the procedure early, despite the risks. But, as my aunt says, people get like that when they're scared. Everyone is terrified that the deliria will somehow find its way into Portland on a large scale. Everyone wants to prevent an epidemic. I feel bad for the Marks family, of course, but that's the way things are. It's like the regulators. You may not like the patrols and the identity checks, but since you know it's all done for your protection, it's impossible not to cooperate. And it may sound awful, but I don't think about Willow's family for long. There's just too much end of high school paperwork to file, and nervous energy, and lockers to clean out, and final exams to take, and people to say goodbye to. Hannah and I can barely find time to run together. When we do, we stick to our old routes by silent agreement. She never mentions the afternoon at the labs again, to my surprise. But Hannah's mind has a tendency to skip around, and her new obsession is a collapse at the northern end of the border that people are saying might have been caused by the invalids. I don't even consider going down to the labs again, not for one single solitary second. I focus on everything and anything besides my lingering questions about Alex, which isn't too hard, considering that I now can't believe I spent an evening biking up and down the streets of Portland, lying to Carol and the regulators just to meet up with him. The very next day, it felt like a dream, well, or a delusion. I tell myself I must have gone temporarily insane. Brain scramble from running in the heat. On graduation day, Hannah sits 3 rows ahead of me at the commencement ceremony. As she files past me to take her seat, she reaches out for my hand. 2 long pumps, 2 short ones. And when she sits down, she tilts her head back so I can see that she has taken a marker and scrawled on the top of her graduation cap, "Thank God." I stifle a laugh, and she turns around and makes a pretend stern face at me. All of us are giddy, and I've never felt closer to the St. Anne's girls than that day. All of us sweating under the sun, which beams down on us like an exaggerated smile, fanning ourselves with the commencement brochures, trying not to yawn or roll our eyes while Principal McIntosh drones on about adulthood and our entrance into the community order, nudging one another and tugging on collars of our scratchy graduation gowns to let some air down our necks. Family members sit in white plastic folding chairs under a cream white tarp fluttering with flags. The school flag, the city flag, the state flag, the American flag. They applaud politely as each graduate goes up to receive her diploma. When it's my turn, I scan the audience looking for my aunt and my sister, but I'm so nervous about tripping and falling as I take my place on stage and reach for the diploma in Principal McIntosh's hand. I can't see anything but color. Green, blue, white, and a mess of pink and brown faces. Or to make out any individual sounds beyond the shh of clapping hands. Only Hannah's voice, loud and clear as a bell. Hallelujah, Helena! That's our special pump you up chant that we used to do before track meets and tests, a combination of both of our names. Afterward, we line up to take individual portraits of our diplomas. An official photographer has been hired, and a royal blue backdrop set up in the middle of the soccer field where we all stand and pose. We're too excited to take the pictures seriously, though. People keep doubling over laughing in their pictures, so all you can see is the crowns of their heads. When it's my turn for a picture, at the very last second, Hannah jumps in and throws one arm around my shoulders, and the photographer is so startled, he presses down on the shutter anyway. Click! There we are. I'm turning to Hannah, mouth open, surprised, about to laugh. She's a full head taller than me, has her eyes shut, and her mouth open. I really do think that there is something special about that day. Something golden and maybe even magic. Because even though my face was all red and my hair looked sticky on my forehead, it's like Hannah rubbed off on me a little bit. Because despite everything, and just in that one picture, I look pretty. More than pretty. Beautiful, even. The school band keeps playing, mostly in tune, and the music floats across the field and is echoed by the birds wheeling in the sky. It's like something lifts in that moment. Some huge pressure divide, and before I know what's happening, all of my classmates are crushing together in a huge hug, jumping up and down and screaming, "We did it! We did it! We did it!" And none of the parents or teachers try to separate us. As we start to break away, I see them encircling us, watching with patient expressions, hands folded. I catch my aunt's gaze and my stomach does a weird twist, and I know that she, like everyone else, is giving us this moment, our last moment together, before things change for good and forever. And things will change, are changing, even at that second. As the group dissolves into clumps of students, and the clumps dissolve into individuals, I notice Teresa Grass and Morgan Dell already starting across the lawn toward the street. They are each walking with their families, heads down, without once looking back. They haven't been celebrating with us. I realize. And it occurs to me I haven't seen Eleanor Rana or Annie Hahn or the other Kurds either. They must have already gone home. A curious ache throbs in the back of my throat. Even though, of course, this is how things are. Everything ends, people move on, and they don't look back. It's how they should be. I catch sight of Rachel through the crowd and go running up to her, suddenly eager to be next to her, wishing she would reach down and ruffle my hair like she used to when I was very little and say, "Good job, Looney," her old nickname for me. "Rachel!" I say, breathless for no reason, and I have trouble squeezing the words out. I'm so happy to see her, I feel like I could burst into tears. I don't, obviously. "You came." "Of course I came." She smiles at me. "You're my only sister, remember?" She passes me a bouquet of daisies she has brought with her, loosely wrapped in brown paper. "Congratulations, Lena." I stick my face in the flowers and inhale, trying to fight down the urge to reach out and hug her. For a second, we just stand there, blinking at each other, and then she reaches out to me. I'm sure she's going to put her arms around me for old time's sake, or at the very least give me a one-armed squeeze. Instead, she just flicks a bang off my forehead. "Gross," she says, still smiling. "You're all sweaty." It's stupid and immature to feel disappointed, but I do. "It's the gown," I say, and realize that yes, that must be the problem. The gown is what's choking me, stifling me, making it hard to breathe. "Come on," she said. "Aunt Carol will want to congratulate you." Aunt Carol is standing at the field's periphery with my uncle, Grace, and Jenny, talking to Mrs. Springer, my history teacher. I fall into step beside Rachel. She's only a few inches taller than I am, and we walk together in sync, but separated by 3 feet of space. She's quiet. I can tell she's already wondering when she can go home and get on with her life. I let myself look back once. I can't help it. I watch the girls circulating in the orange gowns like flames. Everything seems to zoom back, recede away at once. All the voices intermingle and become indistinguishable from one another, like the constant white noise of the ocean running underneath the rhythm of the Portland streets. So constant, you hardly notice it. Everything looks stark and vivid and frozen, as though drawn precisely and outlined in ink. Parents' smiles frozen. Camera flashes blinding. Mouths open and white teeth glistening. Dark, glossy hair and deep blue sky and unrelenting light. Everyone drowning in the light. Everything is so clear and perfect. I'm sure it must already be a memory or a dream.